I'm Dave from boyinaband.com, here with my guitarist Kieran from guywiththeguitar.com. Thank you, Kieran. Today, we'll be showing you how to create a nifty flange effect on your guitar. Flange? That's a silly sounding word, I hear you say, and I wholeheartedly agree. It sounds like that pudding you used to have to eat in school because you got to the cafeteria late and there was no cake left. Flange is actually an effect similar in sound to chorus, in that it mixes a dry signal with a fading in and out wet signal. However, it uses a shorter delay time and feeds back some of the signal back into the input. Flange was originally intended to duplicate the sound of two tape decks synced together, and then pressing on the flange of one of the tape reels so they become slightly out of sync and create that classic whooshing sound. This effect does that same thing with the guitar signal, duplicating it and slightly delaying the duplicated signal, modulating the delay time with an LFO. Okay, so let's go about showing you how to make a nice flange effect. Make sure you're on your bypass setting, should be right at the end, and let's create an amp. Let's go to the layout with the layout button and scroll until you're happy and create an amp. Click edit and let's change the type to blues, because it doesn't have a very distinct sound and it leaves us to focus on the flange effect. Now let's move to the right and we'll quickly create a cabinet, enter, and that'll give us a nice volume boost and a nicer tone. And then let's scroll across once more and dial in a flange. So keep going, it should be the 13th one along. Flanger 1, enter. So let's take a listen. We can hear already on the presets that nice cheesy sound we've all grown to love, or some of you might hate it and will just be creating this sound for your own masochistic reasons that I don't want to delve into just yet. So we'll click edit and have a play around with the options. So let's start at the start. We've got time. Time changes the delay time and we get a huge difference in effect here. A low delay time like we've got here gives us a slow moving oscillation that sounds a bit like a jet plane, and higher values give us a more metallic robot-like sound. Now, don't get me wrong, I love robots, who doesn't? But this effect fully cranked is a bit strong for my taste, and I'll normally stick to a nice kind of, let's scroll down to 2.5-ish. There we go. However, to really show you what this effect can do, let's ham it up and stick it up to about 7. There we go. Block chords sound quite overbearing, but picked chords and individual notes sound distinct and effective. Check it out. Sweet. Next, we've got rate. Rate controls the frequency of the LFO. All the way to the left, we can sync this to the tempo of the song. Otherwise, low values give us a slow fading in and out wet signal, and high values give us a much faster fade and almost vibrato feel. We're going to turn this all the way left to sync it to our predetermined tempo. That's preparation. Now, let's move to the depth. Depth asks the question, just how deep do you want your effect? 0% just turns it off entirely. 50%, we've got a little bit of subtlety in there. And 100% gives us a huge amount of detuning. So of course, we'll sit on the fence with a nice healthy 50%. There we go. Next, we've got feedback. This sets the amount of wet signal fed back into the input. At 0%, which is in the middle, we've got no effect at all. A nice 50%, we've got a subtle amount, and there. And let's take it right up and you get an extremely strange effect that just screams drunken nightmares at you. Bad times. If we are to crack this effect too much either way, it can easily result in an out of control oscillation effect. So those of you lathering on the effect, be prepared to be seriously weirded out. We all know how easy it is fence sitting when it comes to these kinds of effects, so let's stick with about 50. There we go. The next option, manual, is something you can play around with if you would like to manually control the flange through a foot pedal. We're just going to leave this untouched for now. Tempo is an option we have on oscillating effects. It gives us the option to play it simple by locking the rate effect to the global tempo, which is set by this lovely flashing button here. So, the further we crank the dial up, the more oscillations per beat we end up with. So selecting 1 would give us a 4-beat or semi-breve oscillation, then higher options such as 1/4 give us a much faster crotchet beat oscillation. Simple. The smaller the fraction, the faster the oscillations. So let's move 2 pages to the right. The mix is pretty much the same as all the other effects. So this is the advanced page. And this has all the advanced parameters for you geniuses out there. Or is it genii? Anyway, we've got dry delay. This adjusts the time before the dry signal kicks in. This parameter tweaked alongside with the time parameter can help achieve some subtle changes in tone through what is known as through-zero flanging effects, or to us commoners, moving the dry signal forward, making it appear that the wet signal is coming in before the dry signal is even played. So yes, the X-Effects is capable of time travel. Next up, we've got phase reverse. This gives the option to reverse the phase of the wet signal on either the left or the right side of panning for a greater stereo effect, or even on both. Hear the difference? Sweet. Bass and treble here give us the option to either increase or reduce the bass or treble response to the wet signal. We could just boost or cut either of these by 12 decibels. I'll just quickly show you that. It's basically the same as any old EQ. So take it right up by 12 decibels on the bass there. And if we take it back down, we have the normal sound again. Okay. And below this, the bass frequency and treble frequency adjusts the frequency which you're boosting with these values here. So if we scroll down a bit more, Lfo Phase adjusts the phase difference between the left and right waveforms. We have the option to go up to 180 degrees, which gives us a maximum right delay time and minimum left delay time. This gives us a much wider stereo spread. We scroll down again. Lfo type here changes the type of waveform the Lfo takes. We have a huge amount of options here, including we've got sine as the basic one, triangle, square, saw up, saw down, and random, log, exp, trapezoid. Yeah, this is quite crazy. These options really are down to taste and what kind of effect you're trying to create here. We can achieve some rather strange effects with sawtooth types, for example. Sweet. Next up we've got Lfo Hi Cut. This adjusts the filtering of the Lfo waveform. For example, if we've selected a waveform such as square, with such a quick depth change, we end up with a clicking noise because the change is so quick. So decreasing the Lfo Hi Cut helps to smooth out this problem. Let's show that now. Okay. And now if we take the Hi Cut down. Now if I take the Hi Cut up. There we go, much softer. Next up, we've got auto depth. This effect should really be set to low or high. When off, the depth is not automatically set to the rate and leaves us with a very uncontrolled sound. So let's take a listen to that. Low and high give us more musical results, shall we say. Low and high. Well, that's about it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed playing with Flange, the effect that is very similar to chorus, let's face it, but it still has its subtle differences in its own personality. Flange, still sound like a weird word? Yeah, I thought so too. Toodle pip!